When something that you've chased and identified with for 20 straight years is literally taken from you in a matter of a phone call, it forces you to say, well, who am I really? The fear is not because it's over your head, you're not able to learn it. The fear is purely the fear of the unknown. You become this river with your money, and I think that's what we want to be. We don't want to be reservoirs with our money, we want to be rivers. Be careful, don't give with the expectation that something's coming back to you eventually, because that's selfishness disguised as generosity. You're literally giving to hope to gain.
Most financial advisors teach you how to make, save, or invest more money. But none of that matters if your relationship with money is broken. After going from professional athlete to homeless newlywed overnight, Matt realized that money means nothing if you're not at peace with yourself. Losing the only identity he'd ever known forced him to rebuild from the inside out. That journey became the foundation of Reconstructing Wealth, a firm built on one truth: real prosperity starts with emotional clarity, not strategy. In this episode, you'll learn how to redefine success when your old identity no longer fits. Detach your worth from your net worth, find peace before profit, and build a life you don't need to escape from. Because at the end of the day, money doesn't create freedom, your mindset does. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Matt
I'm so
Morizio.
excited. What a cool intro. Thank you for that.
Tell us your story and how it all began and how you became the man you are.
You said it. I did play baseball. That was my dream since I was a 6-year-old boy. That's where it started. I would say my disciplined, hard-charging, narrow-focused, chase a ridiculous dream type mindset began. I'm not saying at 6 years old I embodied all of that, but I really did. At 6 years old, when I graduated preschool, we had a graduation book. And in it, there was that "what do you want to be when you grow up" section, and I wrote baseball player there. I wasn't alone. There was other athletes and firefighters and astronauts, but I chased that dream for legitimately 20 years. I played in college, and I eventually got drafted by the Royals, which was my dream. So now I'm living my dream, chasing it. I never made it to the big leagues. I was in the minor leagues. But when something that you've chased and you've really owned and identified with for 20 straight years is literally taken from you in a matter of a phone call, it really jars you and it forces you to sort of look introspectively to say, well, who am I really? And I know it was a problem that I identified as a baseball player. That was who I was instead of what should have been what I did. It was what I did. It wasn't who I was, but really at that time it was who I was. I had to really go on this deep dive introspectively to say, what am I about? What makes me tick? Who am I? What's really going to be my foundation? For me, it became my faith, because that was the thing that didn't leave me. As a young boy, my parents were divorced, 3rd, 4th grade. That then was supposed to be that foundation. Your parents were supposed to be your rock. Then they split, so that didn't work. But baseball didn't fail me. So for 20 years, I leaned on that, but then baseball's gone. I realized I needed something that wasn't going to let me down. And here I am fit now. Fast forward, I'll skip a bunch of years, but you fast forward to today. I became an entrepreneur a year and a half ago at 40 with 7 children as the sole provider. My wife and I just celebrated 15 years this past week. And thank you. And in 15 years, she's my person. She's my best friend. And I'd be lying if I said she hasn't let me down at certain times, right? So rightfully, I didn't identify as her husband, although that is something part of my identity. I don't fully depend on that because now I'm more rooted in my faith. But that was a long introspective journey of who am I? What makes me tick? It sounds a little bit woo-woo, but I needed it because I felt a bit like a lost toy, after baseball.
How did you rebuild again? And because once you lose that identity, how did you become an entrepreneur after doing baseball and having that identity? What did you do to pick yourself back up? Having that faith definitely helped, but I'm guessing there would have been some challenging times as well that came along with it.
A lot of challenging times. So for me, entrepreneurship made the most sense because my entire life I chased this super unrealistic goal. And the odds were dramatically stacked against me, so heavily against me. And I didn't care, and I chased it anyway. And I realized, now, being in business, I realized that is the entrepreneurial wiring. That's the entrepreneurial mindset, is you chase what the statistical odds say are probably not going to work out. and the mountain is gigantic to try to build a business and start something, and you do it anyway because you really believe in yourself. So you really bet on yourself. The transition into entrepreneurship felt like it made a lot of sense, but I would say that that journey was full of like, who am I? What makes me tick? That's really where it needed to start. It was like, well, I could take what would be the easier path and just continue on in a career in baseball of some way, shape, or form, which is what most high-level athletes do. They stay in their sport as a coach, a scout. They open their own facility, teaching, coaching that thing. They run a team, whatever it is. I said, all right, or I could really say like, thank you for that chapter of my life, that season, that journey. I've learned a bunch. Now let me build upon it and see what else I can do. Like, what else am I made for? And I chose, and that was the harder path, and I chose it because if anything, baseball taught me that usually the easy path, the shortcut, is usually the wrong one. So I knew that I had given 110% of myself to baseball. And if at the end of the day, I wasn't good enough, if that wasn't my calling, then so be it. I didn't want to stay in the game just because I felt like it's all I knew and it's all I was, so it's comfortable. So I really took the hard road to say, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to build something new, to see what I'm capable of outside of the sport. And I took that leap of faith to start in business first. I was in finance staffing, which led me into financial management, but it opened my eyes to a whole new world of business.
And then from there, what happens? How did you become an entrepreneur from there?
I got into business because I needed a job. I was let go from baseball. We were recently married. We got pregnant shortly after getting married while being jobless. I got released. And I was like, I need somebody to help me with work because I couldn't do it on my own. My resume said baseball, basically. I had no other real pedigree within business to get me in front of somebody. So I went to the staffing firm whose sole business model is let me help people like you find jobs with clients. And that's how I started. I got into finance and accounting staffing because I actually went to them to be placed with one of their clients, but they liked me so much during that process that they said, how about you come on board with us, work with us? I said, all right, well, if it gets me work, I'm in. I'm the sole provider with a baby and no job currently, so this isn't a great start, so I'll take it, And in that, I saw how business worked. It was pure sales, $100 a day, 12 meetings in person a week. And I got to really see the mechanics behind so many businesses. And really, at the end of the day, I didn't want to build somebody else's dream. I was in this corporate billion-dollar publicly traded 50-year-old plus company. I had a bunch of meetings every week, 10 to 12 in person. And I met actually the partners of the old firm I worked for. And very similarly, they were like, hey, I think you would be really good in wealth management. I don't know how you feel about your current staffing job, but if you're ever interested in wealth management, give us a call. And I was like, all right, let me explore that a bit because that was not the plan. Listen, I was hitting the KPIs, the key performance indicators that the big mothership told me to hit. You got to hit 10 meetings a week. You got to make 80 to 100 cold calls a day. So I just was doing it. As an athlete, you separate what needs to be done and what you want to do. So I was just doing what needed to be done. And I met these people as one of my 10 or 12 meetings and checking that box. And I actually wasn't planning to jump to a new career, but I got into that world.
Especially wealth management. Wealth management. And without
I had no experience in wealth management. I had no clients. They took a huge bet on me, a huge flyer on me, which I'm super grateful for. It totally changed the trajectory of my life. And then I got into what was a really small company. Maybe at the time it was 7 or 8 people. And now I'm in the entrepreneurial world. And I loved it. And I thought this was so cool. It was so refreshing for me to actually see that 99% of businesses that are started out there aren't from the Elon Musks and the Steve Jobs of the world. There are very, 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 very few visionaries who create something that literally changes the world. Most entrepreneurial endeavors, most businesses are copycat businesses done with a twist, done better, done differently. So it's oh, I could do that because I was I don't have any great, brilliant ideas that are going to change the world. So when I learned how that worked, I looked at day one now I was still an employee of theirs, a W-2 employee, even though it was an entrepreneurial business. I looked at day one of that as like the start of my entrepreneurship journey, even though technically on paper it wasn't, because it was on me to build my own practice. There was no like clients fed to me or anything like that. And I knew, because I saw how the business worked, if one day I liked it and I was good at it and I built something, like there's a thought that I could go launch my own thing. And eventually that little flame in my heart turned into this bonfire a few years ago, and I had to do it. I had to take the leap, which 7 children, sole provider, 40 years old, like none of that is the right time to start a business. But I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't deny it. I wasn't running from these guys. I felt like I was being called to something. So I felt like if I didn't do that, I was not living into my fullest potential. And I can't sleep well at night if I know that there's an opportunity for me to grow and I choose no. So I had to chase it. And it's been incredible since. I have to say, like, I'm built for entrepreneurship for sure.
That's incredible. That's inspiring, because a lot of people have that fear when it comes to jumping from safety to the entrepreneurial world as well. And it also involves a mindset. And that's something that I'm so fascinated about, the mindset of success. And money is a part of that too. So I want to ask you about the biggest lie about money that you had to unlearn before anything else started working. What beliefs kept you from sabotaging your peace and progress?
That's a really good question. The biggest belief buster that I can provide for people is that most believe, myself included, before I got into this, I thought that I needed to have some type of like pedigree in personal finance. Maybe my family was in stock management, stock trading, or economists, or they have Harvard business degrees generationally. This is like a family lineage. That's what I thought. Like, in order to understand investment finance, you have to be the cream of the crop. And I didn't necessarily believe that to be me. So I felt like all of that must be over my head. I'll never be good with it. I just need to have somebody in my corner, I guess, to actually help me be good with it, because I can't do it myself. And that can't be farther from the truth. Once I got into the world of personal finance, right? Like, I learned the language of personal finance, the language of money, the same way somebody who wants to learn Spanish moves to Spain and starts to learn Spanish, like through immersion, because I went from an outsider to suddenly being employed as a career to help people with it. So I had to learn at an accelerated rate how money worked. And as I learned how the game of money worked, the more this veil was lifted, and I realized, like, what was I so afraid of? What was I so scared of? The fear for me and for so many people, and this is what I hope I can help people bust that belief. The fear is not because it's over your head. You're not able to learn it. The fear is purely the fear of the unknown. I relate it to people like this. You know, when you're going into your first year of high school, your freshman year of high school, that summer leading up to it, there's a lot of anticipation. And then the week prior to your high school years, you're filled and flooded with all of the emotion and anxiety of, what's this new building going to be like? Who are the kids going to be? Because it's a big city, maybe all coming together for one. I don't know if I'm going to know everybody. Will I get along with them? Will I get lost? Will I get, made fun of by the upperclassmen? What's my schedule? All that. And you just have this anxiety and worry about what high school is going to be like. And then you fast forward 5 or 10 days into your freshman year, and 80% of all those fears are gone, because now you've got your schedule, you know your teachers, you know your classmates, you know how to get around the building, you know the layout. Like, it's not as scary as it was. And I'm here to tell you, because I've had thousands of conversations with people about their money at this point. The overwhelming majority of us, myself included, until I got into it, we walk around, financially speaking, we walk around like incoming freshmen our whole lives. We spend our entire lives like the week before freshman year, never choosing to take the step and actually attend high school for a week and learn it's actually not that bad and it's not that scary. And you very well can have a super successful financial life without somebody like me needing to be on your team. Though I would argue, like, my job is important. Like, I actually can help you. But at the same time, I'm here to bust the belief that you can't do it alone. You can and you should understand how money works, because it will relieve this stress and this pressure off your shoulders that you never even knew you existed.
Yeah, I'm going to deep dive into that a little bit more. But I'm just fascinated and curious that how you would have felt when you were like thrown in the deep end without that experience of the wealth management and investing and whatnot, and then you got thrown into managing other people's wealth, that would have put a lot of pressure on you to actually, you're managing other people's wealth. So you would have had to learn fast, but also I would have, me personally, had the fear of lose people's money, but I'm guessing you would have had the tools and the systems in place to help manage it depending on their risk factor. Is that what happened? Because managing their wealth, so whether they have the aggressive targets or they're safe, like I'm guessing there's systems in place to help you prevent money loss.
Yeah, to a degree. When you invest, it's not like, will the money go down ever? It's not, will it happen? It's when will it happen, I think is probably the best way to say it. You will see money drop if you're invested in anything. But thankfully, when I first joined that other firm, I got to lean on their experience and they were helping with the investments. So I could say, hey, look, I'm going to be in your corner, but you also have this team of people who have been in the industry for collectively decades, and they're going to also be part of the team. So that's how I kind of, at least in my own mind, helped gain the confidence to say, yeah, we can do this for you, because it wasn't like I was solely on an island and be like, hey, Matt, you can do everything. Just do it yourself and you get no help. So they were managing the money, but you aren't kidding. The pressure and the weight and the gravity of somebody saying, hey, here is my entire life savings and I'm entrusting you to manage it well, to steward it well. That was way heavier than I ever anticipated it being. Because you're right. I've never met a single person yet, thousands of conversations later, that wants their money to go down. Not a single one has told me it's okay when the money drops. It's not okay, even if we know it's going to happen.
Yeah. So
just leaning into that, saying like, I understand it's going to happen. I've got a team, but the realization for me was, wow, I flipped it. It became a real honor for somebody to entrust that level of importance in their life, entrust me with it. That became such a huge honor for me. It is weighty, it is a pressure, but I consider it a privilege because, man, that means something to somebody's life and their legacy.
Can you share some of how, you mentioned how money works and what you learned as well? What are those things and advice that you've learned while you were working there?
The foundation, and this seems so simple maybe when I say this out loud, but most people don't do this. The foundation of any good money management, any good understanding of your personal finances, it starts with knowing what it costs to be you. What is your, some people will call it a budget, right? Like budget, I try to avoid the word just because it's a dirty word. Even though like we all have a budget, we may choose to pay attention to it or not, but what you spend is your budget. In the same way that we all have a diet, what you eat is your diet. Even if it's Twinkies and Cheetos, your diet consists of Twinkies and Cheetos. That's your diet, Not on a diet, not on a budget maybe, but like we all have a diet, we all have a budget. But when you start to pay attention to that diet, when you pay attention to the budget and where the money goes, that's actually the foundational piece for nearly every good financial plan I've ever built. And anybody who's really trying to do something with their wealth, that's a really foundational piece. Most people focus on how much am I earning? And you know what? That's a very close second, because I'm not saying you need to figure out how to cost cut. I'm saying first, just shine a light on what you spend. Understand that. Because let's just say hypothetically, you spend, I'm in the US, so $10,000 right, per month. Let's just use that round number. And you make $15,000 US per month. Okay. Now there's this $5,000 difference. You have money to work with. Do I think you're going to be exact with your 10,000? Probably not. Like none of us can be perfect. But maybe you give yourself a buffer. There should be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 somewhere in there to do something with. Now you can make a plan. Like, let me invest it. Let me do something. Most people operate by the mentality of like, if there's money left over at the end of the month, I'll do something with it. Maybe I'll give it away. Maybe I'll invest it. Maybe I'll buy myself something nice. But that's not really how good planning works, because we end up just overspending or just mismanaging the money. So interestingly, like the biggest tip I can give to anybody when it comes to like, hey, you want to get better with your money, is shine a light on your expenses. Figure out what it costs to be you. I'm not saying cut the expenses, I'm saying figure that number out first, because it's probably going to be pretty eye-opening. Wow, I didn't know I spent that much money. I remember when I thought I had a good handle on my money, and then I used one of those like apps that you pay $10 a month and tracks all your spending once you like link the accounts. And I noticed, holy smokes, I am spending more than I actually attributed to. And that helped me, because I looked at it and said, shoot, all right, this is actually what it costs to be me. Because I know I'm not recklessly spending. I just missed a bunch of expenses. And it helped me sort of reconfigure what it is, recalibrate maybe where I'm spending my money or how to spend money. More importantly, what to do with the outside money of like what it costs to be you. That's a really important piece. I can't overstate that enough. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm not saying cut expenses. That's what people hear when they say, figure out what it costs to be you. They say, oh, he's telling me to stop spending money. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying just know what it costs to be you per month. Start there. Because at the end of the day, like once you fast forward a little bit and you start to figure out how am I going to use this money as a tool, like chess pieces on a chessboard, you have really two levers to pull when it comes to your personal budget. You either spend less if you want more money in your pocket, you spend less, or you earn more, or some combination of those. Those are the two levers to pull. If you want more money on the bottom line in your pocket, you earn more in money, or you spend less money, or you earn more and spend less. That's it. I don't want to oversimplify it, but literally I do want to oversimplify it. As a matter of fact, like figure out what it costs to be you and then decide. I'm not overspending on anywhere. I just need to go earn more money. That's the actual conversation I have most of the time. Believe it or not, even though I know my industry preaches like cost cutting, be frugal, don't buy the latte, whatever it is, the real conversation is usually, hey, you got to earn more money. Like it costs a lot of money nowadays to live. Like you're not reckless with your spending, and at the risk of a dramatic lifestyle change, you got to earn your money, because otherwise you're going to have to sell your home, move. Like there's got to be some tremendous cost cutting measures to materially impact you. So you got two levers. We don't have much fat to trim here. Let's earn more income. Like that's your lever.
That's true. And invest too. And you work with people who look successful on paper, but still they have that unsafe, or a lot of people are also scarcity driven as well. So what's usually the deeper wound beneath those numbers, and how can they start healing that fear, that scarcity fear?
That wound comes often from our childhood. So many of our wounds do.
Growing up, and our parents and how they belief systems they ingrained in us subconsciously as well. The things that they told us.
You got it. Yeah. That's what happens. We inherit, I have 7 children. So I know firsthand how much is caught from children versus how much is taught to my children. They catch far more than I teach them. They observe a whole lot more than hear my words and actually apply them. They see me living, and that's important. Problem is, when it comes to finances, the world tells you not to talk about money. Money's taboo. It's a private topic. It's shush. Don't speak about it. You may only speak to 1, 2, 3 people in your entire life about your personal finances. It's kept that quietly. Well, what happens, generationally speaking, is, my mom, I grew up in a really scarcity mindset around money. That was my childhood, my upbringing. She got that from her parents because I asked her, they never talked about money as a kid. So my mom just caught from her parents because nothing was communicated. So she just observed how they behaved around money and figured that's how I behave around money. And her parents were products of the Great Depression. So the 30s was a Great Depression. And that's a time where America was very worried about money. And since nobody along that lineage, there's no generational chain breaking there, that scarcity mindset around money just get handed down from generation to generation. And I'm here to tell you, until you, me, any of us decide that we are going to be that generational chain breaker in our family lineage, so that future Morizios down the road no longer worry and think about money in that way. They look at money as a tool to live out their calling. They use it as chess pieces on a chessboard, like I said. They understand that it's there to serve their greater mission. It's not there to hoard and to worry about. Until I decided that I'm going to be the one that breaks that chain, I would have just passed on that same mindset around like hoarding and worry and fear. Because where I grew up, it was cold in New England, northeastern United States, in Boston area. And the winters were freezing. I remember specifically I was in college at this point. I still look at that as my childhood. I got home for Christmas that winter, that time I was home for Christmas break. I remember going into my house and going around the corner to the living room where my mother was, and there was a heavy blanket draped over the doorway. Like it was an open door frame. She draped a heavy blanket there. And this was not when I was growing up in that house. We never had that. So I'm like, what is going on here? She lived alone. My parents divorced when I was young. So she's alone in this house. And I peeled the blanket back. I remember, this will highlight my mindset around money. I peeled the blanket back and it was noticeably warmer in that room. And she was there on the couch with like a down blanket on, watching TV. And I was like, what are you doing in here, Mom? And what I learned was she was effectively cocooning herself in a room to conserve heat, so she didn't have to turn the heat in the house up because oil heat is really expensive. So she wanted to keep the temperature of the house way low. But if she put that blanket, she kind of like created her own little cocoon and warmed the room up with body heat. That's my mindset around money. Like, what does that teach you? That teaches you. Now, to a degree, having a scarcity or mindset, being frugal around money is a healthy thing. There's no sense in overpaying for something that's not worth it. But that is an extreme. And now I don't know at that season, I don't know her personal finances then. I just knew what she told me, which I always heard. There's not enough money. Like, you guys got to be smart with it. That's what I heard. And I saw. Now, though, as her advisor and knowing her financial situation.
What's the secret weapon behind every top CEO and entrepreneur? A game-changing executive assistant. Hermessi gives you access to elite EAs who supercharge your productivity. From payroll and admin to social media and customer support, they handle it all so you can focus on growth and big picture decisions. These aren't your average assistants. They're expertly trained, thoroughly screened, and equipped with the latest AI tools to work smarter and faster. Ready to delegate and dominate? Get 15% off your first 2 months with code INSPIRE15. Don't wait. Visit Hermessi, that's HERMESSI.com, and take back your time today.
Knowing that, like, I had to basically push her out the door to retire because she didn't want to, because she was worried, even though she just retired a year ago, because I see her numbers. I can only say that there was probably a lot of that going on. I know she's okay retiring, yet she was worried sick about not having enough in retirement. Even though I'm here in her corner saying, like, you're going to be fine, I promise. She's worried sick. So I've got to believe that in that season of life, there was some truth to it. As a single mom, I get that like there was fear around being the only provider. But I'm here to believe that there was probably enough, and she probably didn't need to keep the heat as low as she kept the heat in the house. She didn't need to cocoon herself. She could have released some of that. But I will say, like, that's how I grew up around money. It was not until I got educated on it that the veil sort of was lifted, like the wizard behind the curtain was revealed, and I recognized, I know how this works now. This is not nearly as worrisome as I thought. So I would say if someone wants to figure out why do they feel some way they do, the question to ask yourself is, think of a childhood story that really depicts how you feel about money today. And if you could think of your own childhood story that really like highlights the way you feel about money, you probably have a really great start on understanding why is it you feel like you do when you open your bank account, when you go to spend money on something, all that.
A great deal of having that self-awareness that's so important as well, and being able to catch yourself. Because sometimes, like, I grew up, my mum's single mum as well, and she was poor. And so I grew up with that mentality as well, and having the scarcity mindset. But now I've had to change after learning about finance and investing and reading and opening my eyes up. Things have changed as well. And so you just still got to catch yourself if the things that you say, like my son's showering for so long and just using so much soap. It's like, well, I can afford all that, but I try to ingrain in him, just stop it. Don't waste so much, but I know that that's where I'm trying to teach the smarts. Like, I try to teach my kids about wealth and as an entrepreneur, and how we pay people to do our tasks that aren't valuable so that we can focus on the things that are important to us, and that's our time. So, teaching your kids that is super important as well, and working hard as well. But yeah, the ingrained belief system we have to change as well. But it also starts with internal transformation. So if someone can make a change today, what's the first shift that they can make to change the way they manage their own money as well?
I would say if you're stuck and you feel like, I don't know, I want to take charge of my personal finances and I don't know where to begin, but I know I want to begin somewhere. I am here to tell you, like with the age of AI, you could probably ask ChatGPT or your prompting engine of your choice, explain your situation. Say, I want to change my finances. I want to get better with my personal finances and understand it more. What should be the first 3 questions I ask? And what should be my first 3 areas to educate myself on? Ask a question like that. That should be the prompt. And then it's going to tell you where to begin. And if you want, you could have it answer its own questions. I mean, that's an excellent place to begin the journey. And I know that's probably not the answer you'd think, because you think like, call me, I'm an advisor, I'll help you. That's actually not the place you're going to actually embody this financial transformation, because it's got to start from the inside. It's got to be an inside out journey. I would say in tandem with the education piece, start to figure out, why do you feel the way you do about money? Like, start to take a few moments, sit in some quiet and reflect on your childhood, reflect on previous experiences with money, and figure out what it is. Like, where is that coming from? What is my childhood money story that's holding me back or causing me to be off track when I feel like I want to be on track? Because I will tell you, the 2 most impactful variables or prongs of the 2 pieces that have really changed my relationship with money the most has been, the first one, the education piece, which is what you could do on your own. Just ask ChatGPT or whatever, hey, I want to be great with money. I want to be a financial savant. Teach me, That is a long game, but that's a sustaining you. That game will sustain you, because you start to understand how to use money as a tool. You understand that money is no more than exchange of value. So you think about, like, how can I provide more value to somebody in their life? And in exchange, they're going to pay me for it. And you think about your unique gifts and your calling. And like, that's a whole nother conversation about how to go there. But you start to understand, I'm not chasing the money. I have to understand, like, where am I going to add some value into somebody's life to a degree that they'll pay me in exchange because they feel like it's worth it. The time piece. If I cut your lawn and it saves you 2 hours and it only costs you, I don't know, $40 or $20, whatever it is, and you know that with your career you make $100 per hour or whatever the number is, that's a valuable exchange for you. I'll take $200 of my time back in exchange for $40. Like, that's a good deal. So you think about it, you realize, like, that's all money is. It's just an exchange of value. If it's a low value activity like lawn mowing, you have to do a high volume of it to make a lot of money. Doesn't mean it's any better or worse. It's just understand the mechanics. Low volume activity. You sell pencils. You got to sell a lot of pencils. If you're a brain surgeon and the risk of you not doing the surgery is death, that's a high risk, high reward type, small number of surgeries. You don't do 10,000 surgeries a year, whereas you might need to sell more than 10,000 pencils to make a profit, right? But because that is a big dollar sign, you don't need to do as many in a year. That's how money works. So understanding that education piece is huge. The second, maybe more impactful piece that I actually never even gave credit for is giving. Generosity has quite literally changed me from the inside out, and I never meant it to. It was this journey I went on, and I feel like I should probably explain that, because that probably is a little bit of a head scratcher.
I believe in giving too, definitely, because what the energy you give out comes back. It's all energy, what you give comes back. So tell me what your experience is. So for me, money had this hold on me, and I knew it, but I didn't know how to shake it. It was sometimes a heavy burden as a sole provider. When you see, like, I can't really meet these bills, that's stressful. Other times you felt like there was enough, but it was a dull pressure, a dull weight that kind of lived in my head.
And I didn't like it. I didn't want that. And there was another part of me that wanted to be consistent with my giving. I just wanted to give consistently. Like in the church, they call it a tithe. You can call it whatever you want. But I wanted to be consistent and disciplined with giving. And when I look at like my life, my body of work, from chasing pro athletes to entrepreneur at 40, 7 kids, we homeschool, like there's nowhere on my journey that I ride the fence. I just straddle the fence and sort of take a middle ground, except with money and giving. I would give some months, and then other months would be tight and have all the reasons not to. And then I get back on, like, it'd be like one of those diets, those fad diets of like, I'm on track, I'm off track, I'm on track, I'm off. That was how I was with giving, and it was driving me crazy. So I committed. Finally, I said, if I'm going to do this, I need to open the separate bank account because I needed it out of sight, out of mind. I needed to assign a bank account for other people, basically. So I opened a separate bank account, and then I started committing. Hey, 10% of everything that comes in, goes to that account. That's my other people account, my blessing account, I call it. It's for other people, not for me. As I started to do that, I started to feel better about finances. It didn't mean I started to have more money. Actually, I had less because I was giving more away. But my relationship with it changed, and it felt so different over time. And again, I'm on this introspective journey at this time. So like I was kind of aware of this sort of transformation happening as it was happening. I have a few PhDs in psychology that are friends of mine that I asked them, like, can you make any sense of what's happening? I explained what I just explained to you. And they said, hey, if I'm going to explain it to you in my words, in my psychology language, I would tell you that there are really 2 root emotions, love and fear, and a lot of emotions stem from those root emotions. Some would argue there's more, but there's some school of thought that say those are not necessary to hang on to that point. What they would say is that you operated mostly in this fear-based mentality, this fear-based emotion around money, because you worried, you hoarded it, not hoarder type, like I'm not going to have a TV show after me, hoarders. I just had this constant fear about like never enough, got to keep what I have, don't want to spend because I don't want to, that was my mindset, constant. That's like the hamster wheel I lived on. Immediately when I flipped and intentionally said, every time I get paid, 10% goes there, that is a generous, a love-based emotion. And they told me love is always stronger of the 2 emotions. They said, what's happening behind the scenes of your life subconsciously because you set up that account and intentionally said, I'm going to start to give to people, your subconscious was fighting with itself, basically rewiring itself, saying, hey, this thing, guys, that we used to fear, this money thing that we used to worry about, it's okay. We actually are going to give it away now so we can loosen up our grip on it. We don't have to worry so much about it. And literally, quite literally, I was rewiring my subconscious around how I viewed money, how I used money, how I related to money. That was completely unintentional. I just didn't want to be a fence rider anymore, and I wanted to commit to something and stick to my commitment. But subconsciously, the act of giving quite literally rewires your subconscious around money because it can no longer have its hold on you. That thing that you once feared can't also be the thing you want to give away at the same time. If you want to hoard it and give it away at the same time, that love-based emotion will win. And that's how they explained it to me. They're like, maybe you didn't mean to, but you are kind of like rewiring your subconscious. I said, oh, well, that's a cool hack that I never intended on. And like you said, giving feels so good and it totally comes back to you so long as it's from a pure heart. I have to say, like, your heart posture around giving has to be wanting to give for giving's sake. I always tell people, be careful. Don't give with the expectation that something's coming back to you eventually, because that's selfishness disguised as generosity. You're literally giving to hope to gain. That's not what giving's about. But you're right. Like, the universe will reward you. I believe that you put that good energy out there, it finds you in return in ways that you never would have expected. That's happened to me. So I agree with you.
That's powerful. I think that's an easy tip to do, just to rewire your subconscious mind. Just put some 10% of your earnings into an account.
And it doesn't have to be 10%. That was the cool part. I'm glad you brought that up. They never mentioned the quantity that I changed in my subconscious. It was the act of intentionally setting aside money for other people. So it can be $2 per month. It can be 1%. It can be no percent. You can just set aside a fixed dollar amount. It's not the amount. it's the disciplined act of knowing this money is for other people. And you become this river with your money, not a reservoir. You become a river. And I think that's what we want to be. We don't want to be reservoirs with our money. We want to be rivers.
Yeah, but you know what? Like sometimes for me, I've set aside money as well, just to put aside, just for aside. But then parts of me, when I look at that, I'm like, oh, I want to spend it. You know, I'm good. I do invest as well, and I have money set aside for investing, a percentage. Like every week, a certain amount gets taken out just for investing. But then there's saving bucket as well. So there's different buckets that I have. I used to be so against this because I used to think it was so messy. But now that I've done it, it's just so much neater and easier to track that way. You know, you've got your tax bucket, you've got your savings, superannuation that I have to do. But it's like, but when the savings basket, gets pretty full, I'm like, oh, I've got credit card expenses. Maybe I should spend a lot. What's your advice on that? And how do we stop that urge to want to spend so much, especially when we see that the saving or that bucket that we put away is there, you know, like how do we resist that urge to just want to spend?
Well, can I ask you on that savings bucket you have first, is it a saving for anything specific or just saving for saving's sake?
Saving for saving's sake. Because I'm so used to investing as well. But then I've got credit card. When I see the credit card go a bit too high, I'm thinking maybe I should take out of that saving bucket. This is all for business though, right? It's not personal. So I'm thinking maybe I should take some out of that big savings into the credit card because, So what are your thoughts on that?
The other question I have is that savings account visible with all your other accounts? Is it all part of the same bank?
So when I look at when I look at the bank, I can see
and I totally get it. And that was me for so long. I completely relate. Like I would see that money in there alongside the checking account and the credit card statement. All of it was it. And I'm like, I know how I need to use this money right now. I can't afford to give it to somebody else. Like I see the other numbers. To you, I would say, and to anybody that agrees and relates, because there's so many of us, I know it. I've had thousands of conversations with people about their money. I know we relate. First, set it in a different account. Like open up a new bank account and have that account designated for other people, for generosity, so that you don't see it all the time. It's separate, and you're effectively creating more friction for yourself, and you're getting out of your own way by setting money somewhere else where you don't see it. I would say that is step one. Step two is be specific with what jobs you're assigning the dollars for that account. I always find that general savings, basically you tell those dollars in general, I just want you to sit and wait for me. Those always end up finding jobs that you don't want them to do. Like they end up working for you in ways that you didn't anticipate and you don't want them to. But when you're specific with the dollars, like assigning jobs for the money you earn to say, you are for my investing, my future. You are for other people. You're going to go into this account. You are for next month's mortgage statement. So you're going to sit in my savings account. You know, when you get specific with how you're going to use the money, I find that you're less likely to grab it and use it for random things because you've already assigned a specific task for those specific dollars.
That's pretty powerful. I like that. Very useful tip. What does success mean to you now after everything you've lost, built, and reconstructed? And what does success mean to you?
I will never sacrifice my family, my health, my faith. I will never sacrifice those on the altar of ambition, we'll say, meaning like just chasing the almighty dollar. That will never happen because I've seen too many financially successful people, right? Like people who have a lot of money that lead lives that they don't want to live. You know, families don't really have great relationships with them. Health issues are kind of creeping up on them. And I recognize that's a result of years, if not decades, of ignoring the things that matter most. So to me, real success foundationally starts with knowing like I'm rooted in my faith. My kids know who I am and love me. My wife knows who I am and love me. Those that know me the best love me the most. Like that's going to be a measure of success for me. And is my health, am I going to die young at an old age? That's how I look at it. I want to die young at an old age, meaning I'm physically fit, even though my chronological years are long. I'm not living like sitting in a chair for the last 10 years of my life, not moving. Like I want to die young at an old age. So am I preparing that now. And then at the end of the day, like, what is this business that I'm building? What's the legacy for it? Why am I trying to impact? What I really see as successful is like, can I change other people's lives? Can I help them break generational chains in their family trees so that they can go on to live lives like I've done for my family? Because I look at like the generational effect of that. It's hard to quantify how many lives get changed as you start to go 2-3 generations down with children and children's children, all using money effectively. So for me, success is, it's becoming I don't want to say a household name, although that would be cool. It's starting a movement of living generously, stewarding money well in that way. Because I know that like, if I can start that movement, if I can begin that groundswell of realizing like, this financial plan doesn't have to be just about you. It can be about us, a we, not me kind of plan. If you can build that out and it works, and your children, if you do it right, your children or whoever is next in line for you can kind of stand on your shoulders and build, it's an unquantifiable number, and the world will be a better place. Here in the US, there's, don't quote me, but something like 180 million adults 18 and older in the US, I think. I looked at that. Now I have to double check my numbers, but let's just say that it's around there. If every US adult that was 18 or older gave $10 to use towards somebody else, right? That's 1.8 billion. That's almost $2 billion being used to make somebody's day better. Could you imagine the ripple effect of a generation of people who recognize like money is a tool that can be used for good when it's in the hands of the right people?
I love that, because the impact, that's why I love being an entrepreneur too, because I know that I can make an impact to people's lives. It's a lot of pressure, but when you hear stories of what they've done with the money that you've given them, it warms my heart. So I know that doing what I do creates value for not just me and my family, but for others. And that's what I'm
You're impacting my life by allowing me to be on this show and tell my story. I'm super thankful.
I appreciate this. And guys, if you found any value, if you're watching on YouTube, comment on what resonated with you the most and what money mindset thoughts or beliefs did you have to change as well. If you're listening on the podcast, please hit that follow button so that you get notified when there's episodes. Matt, is there any other key messages that you want to leave with the audience, and where can they find you if they want to connect with you?
Thank you for that. I would say if anything piqued your interest and you want to learn more, of course, I have a website, reconstructingwealth.com. I'm not shying away from what my mission is for people. I want to reconstruct people's relationship with money. I want to reconstruct their wealth. So that's where the name came from. But truthfully, people don't come to me for that directly. They come to me like, they don't go to Jenny Craig or some diet plan to say, I think I emotionally eat. They go because they're like, hey, I got a wedding in 3 months and I got to lose 20 pounds. Like people come to me for the financial planning, the investment management. But I like to say the ones that we can make a legacy type change is where we reconstruct from the inside out. So if you want to learn more about that, reconstructingwealth.com. I would say also on Instagram, my name is just at Matt Morizio. It's just my name. If you heard something and you want to learn more, you want to explore more, you don't want to talk to anybody, but you want to kind of dive a little deeper, I recorded a 3-part course, maybe 8 minutes or so, that's free. Just send me a DM, say you heard the podcast. I'll send you a link to the course. It'll cost you maybe an email address, I think, but I'll send that to you. And it dives into a lot of like what we talked about and the science behind how giving rewires your mind around money. And I go into some blocking and tackling about personal finances too. So if you want to dive a little more and just get more educated, like that's a great place to start. Happy to send you that for nothing for anybody who's listening.
Oh, thanks for that, Matt. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an awesome conversation.
It's so fun, Linda. Thank you.